Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael, and I work here in the UCD Smurfit Careers Network, which basically is the career service at the UCD Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School. I'm delighted to be here this evening, and we are joined by some of our esteemed alumni. So I'd like to thank Dennis Maher, who's going to join our panel discussion in a few moments. Dennis, if you have an opportunity there just to say hello to the group here this afternoon.
Yeah, hello everybody. Delighted to join.
Very good. Dennis, you might tell us where you're working and maybe what masters you studied.
Yeah, of course, Michael. So hi everyone. My name is Dennis Maher. I initially did a degree in psychology and then went on to do a master's in human resource management with Smurfit. So after that, I did a bit of time in HR for about 6 months before I joined Accenture in their talent and organization practice. So I was doing that for the last 2 years. Sorry, Michael, probably should have mentioned this prior, but just over a month ago, then I left Accenture and I've actually moved out to Dubai here in the Middle East. So looking out at a slightly darker evening than I'd say you are, but also I'd say slightly warmer weather. But also then in the last few months, I started my own business. So I'm currently working as part of Career Ready Consulting, which is essentially a CV and interview preparation service specifically targeted at students and graduates. So if anybody needs a hand with those things or your master's applications, let me know.
Very good. So I look forward to hearing more about your experiences here at Smurfit later on as part of the panel. So thank you, Dennis. And hopefully, as you say, yeah, you've escaped the Irish weather. So we know that's the primary concern, obviously, for moving to Dubai. Megan, so if you want to say hello and introduce yourself.
Everyone, excited to be here. I'm Megan. I did a master's in what was once called Renewable Energy and Environmental Finance last year. Graduated 2023. I think it's now called Sustainable Finance. And I'm working now as a commercial graduate at SSE. For those of you who live in Ireland currently, you might know it as Electricity. Maybe that's your electricity provider, but yeah, been there since September.
So you're powering the country then, Megan. So that's great to see our wonderful having such important roles. So we will join our panel again once we get through a short presentation that I have to make, which is just a little bit around our careers service and what you might expect through the program once you decide to join us here at the end of August, early September. So I just have a few slides and I'll try and keep it as short as possible. And then we'll get on to the panel, who obviously will have the best points here to make today. Okay, so let's continue on. So again, as I said, I work here in the Smurfit Careers Network. I suppose the way we approach our career delivery for our students is we kind of divide it into a 3-stage professional development program. So it is all around your professional development as candidates here for your masters. And so that is I suppose, how I'm going to split it out, and I'll talk to that in a moment. I just thought I'd also like to share, where our alumni are working. So to give you a sense of the graduate outcomes of our master students who complete just a short 1-year program with us. And the data will be covered the last survey that was completed in 2022. And then we'll move on to the panel. So 3 stages to achieving career outcomes, job success. First stage would be setting you up for success. So we are so serious and so intent on making sure your experience with us maximizes your jobs prospects that we get involved with you as early as the summer of 24. So even before you come on campus here at all at UCD Smurfit, the career service will reach out to you during the summer. And we have a number of options. One will be there'll be an online course to help you orientate yourself for the Irish jobs market. That's open to everybody. It's called Jumpstart. Everything you need to know before you join us about what it's like to work in Ireland. The second thing is we actually provide careers webinars in the summer. So you get a chance to come along and listen to some advice about kickstarting your job search, and also just an opportunity then to ask some questions before you even come on campus. Then the serious work starts. We kick off in September then with our professional development workshops. and they take place during the orientation period. So again, as I said, we're so intent on giving you the best start to your experience here at Smurfit. We talk through such wonderful things as competencies, helping you get yourself started in terms of our service. And also, probably the highlight for most of you will be the alumni talks. So right in that very first week, you will hear from the successes of our Smurfit alumni and how they have now become industry experts across the various master's programs. And each of those sessions is tailored to the master's. So we run about 22, 23 of these. And yes, it is a busy time. And then finally then, as part of this setting you up for success phase, there'll be an opportunity then for our students to engage in a one-to-one career coaching, I suppose, appointments system. But that's once you get through all the first elements. Then finally, the one-to-one is there to try and clarify some of the outstanding questions they might have. So this is kicking you off. The second part then is building those career skills. Once you're in place, once your courses have started, once you feel more at home, once you're, I suppose, settled, you'll be looking at areas around job search strategies. And this applies not just for graduate students, but also for our experienced hires. So here at Smurfit, year on year now, we find we have approximately 30% of our students across all programs are what we call experienced hires. So people with more than 3 years work experience. So it's important that we help everyone build those job search strategies. And one key area that we look at is building self-awareness, trying to get your story across, what makes you unique and how you're going to stand out in the crowd when it comes to landing that job offer. Step 2 then would be looking at understanding how to build professional networks. And we're delighted to be able to bring that to you, firstly, through our job fairs. So in the autumn, we have the large-scale job fairs that happen on the main campus. And then in the springtime, we have more specific fairs that will focus more on the Smurfit students and also for those programs that have internships. So there's an opportunity to get involved with employers on campus, either in Belfield or at Smurfit during your time with us. We highly recommend you get involved in alumni events. Sometimes these are organized through the Global Leadership Program. So that is something else that happens here at Smurfit. There's an opportunity to engage with the people who've gone through the programs in the past. And of course, for those of you who might be looking at getting jobs overseas, we do have our international network that you can start to reach out to, including our UCD business alumni chapters, be it New York, Singapore, or Shanghai. Step 3 then is actually now, once you've done all of the research, once you've got yourself to a point where you understand your own story, you can start applying either for graduate programs or direct entry roles. We find that year on year, 20% of our students get an offer for a graduate program, but the great majority, 80%, get their jobs through direct entry. And we have lots of dedicated platforms where you can find those jobs, either My Career, that's the one called UCD, or if you're looking for jobs overseas, we have a portal that we're delighted to bring our Smurfit students called Hired. And you hear all about that once you join us in September. Last but not least then, you've got through all of that work, put all those building blocks in place, but how do you land that offer? So it's about success at interview, being able to understand, well, how do you have, a brand to bring to bear when it comes to selling yourself at interview, using the power of LinkedIn to try and get into those positions and land those recruitment processes. And so we have interview skills workshops, we do mock interviews with employers, and of course, then the technology exists nowadays for you to be able to do your own mock interview through the power of our Interview 360 tool and get immediate feedback on that. And last but not least, all of our alumni, and you will hear this story throughout the year when you join us, it's about getting involved in the extracurriculars. In order to stand out from the crowd, you need to be able to show, well, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? And in so demonstrating what your personality is, trying to get that story about why you should be hired. And we have wonderful opportunities, for example, in extracurriculars. For example, public speaking is something that many students may not have an experience of, but we have a club here at UCD Smurfit called Toastmasters. So for example, this is just a way to get involved in those extracurriculars to help you stand out from the crowd. Okay, so that's just a very brief overview of what you might expect from the Career Service once you join here in the autumn. But now I'd like to bring us to probably what most of you are here for, really. And that is just to get some quick data around, well, what are the potential outcomes of being a student here at Smurfit? Well, the data from 2022, I just want to highlight this box over here on the right-hand side. All right, so that, sorry, that was 1 second, it skipped ahead. This shows you that 93% of our class of the 2022 cohort, those who graduated in 2022, landed a job within 6 months. So that's a very high statistic. That's more than 1 in 10 people managed to land that job offer within that period of time, within 6 months of graduation. All right? So this is a figure that has been pretty standard over the last number of years. And for those of you who are listening, perhaps not from an EU background, you're a non-EU candidate, this figure is still staggeringly high. We're still at 89% of the non-EU candidates were in employment within 6 months. So that's just a quick overview of the statistics and how that might reassure you about your choice of joining UCD Smurfit. And last but not least, in terms of the companies that potentially you might get a role with, we work with everybody. Basically, that's one thing and one of our strengths here at UCD Smurfit. We work with companies all shapes, all sizes, and all places. So you might recognize some of the big brands there like Microsoft, some of the consulting companies like KPMG. You're looking at, companies that are doing very well in the renewable space nowadays. A company there, for example, called Mainstream. And of course, the big techies, the likes of Meta, etc., do hire our students. So yes, we do get people going into Google as well. So that's just a quick overview from myself. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to bring my wonderful alumni panelists back so that we can start asking them a few questions. And I see, Clara, you have joined us as well. So our third panelist, Clara, thank you for joining us here this afternoon. Perhaps you just want to share with the audience, what program you studied and where you are now.
Yeah, hi. Sorry for being late. So I did the Supply Chain Management Masters, which is now called Sustainable Supply Chain Management, I believe.
That's correct.
And I'm currently working in Bailey's for Diageo as a production and material scheduler.
Ah, Bailey's. Can you explain to the audience what Bailey's is?
Irish cream liqueur. A lovely drink.
Excellent. For those of you who may not know what Bailey's is, yes, it's probably one of their top brands in the country. So it's great to see some of our Smurfit alumni working on such a prestigious brand. So thank you for joining us here this afternoon. And we've already met Megan and Dennis. So I'm just going to jump straight in with some questions. And first one I want to ask is, why did you choose to study at Smurfit? I know there are so many wonderful educational institutions in Ireland. Why did you land on Smurfit? So Megan, I see you're first on my screen here, so I'm going to jump in and ask you this question.
Yeah, so I had heard about my program from a friend of mine who happened to be living in Ireland at the time. I'm from the US, you can't tell from the accent, and I thought it was really unique. So I figured might as well apply and see what happens. I'm from a science background, so I did environmental science for my undergrad. I was looking for a way to sort of not have to work in a lab the rest of my life. So I thought this would be the perfect sort of transitional master's to get that going. Also, the support for international students was really attractive to me as well. And that is kind of what sets Smurfit apart from other Irish universities for me. So.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that our strengths were obvious to you before you joined. And of course, coming from the US, again, Ireland, why Ireland? Maybe that should be a question for you as well, Megan. Why Ireland, but all of the countries around the world?
Yeah, honestly, I just thought it would be sort of a fun way to be closer into Europe and get out of the country for a couple of years, but ended up staying, so I liked it enough anyway. So
good. Yes, I'm delighted. And of course, as you mentioned already, your undergraduate did in some way align with then your masters. So thank you for that. Dennis, why Smurfit? And tell us a little bit about your undergraduate as well, perhaps.
Yeah, of course. So for me, like Smurfit was a relatively easy choice and straightforward at the end of it all. It really boiled down to 2 reasons for me. So for the first thing was I did my degree in psychology with UCD, and that was fantastic. But I realized I probably wanted to go the business route as opposed to, the 10 years of clinical psychology route. So from there, then, it made sense for me to stay in the UCD ecosystem. Like I really enjoyed my time in UCD. It's it's the largest university in Ireland and one of the, if not the most renowned university in Ireland. So at that stage, then I was looking at masters in Smurfit, and I chose a HR masters, and surprised myself, I got accepted relatively quickly. And so I decided, like, I might as well look around here now and check out the rankings, different things like that, and quickly realized that Smurfit was, the best business school in Ireland. I know I haven't checked it in recent years, but I know at the time when I did check it, if you go to the top 100 European rankings, Smurfit was in the teens or in the 20s at the time, and the next Irish business school, Trinity, was 40 or 50 ranks below that. So, after that, I didn't bother doing anything. It just made perfect sense for me to do that master's and to join Smurfit.
Oh, the credibility, of course, brought by the rankings. Very good, very good. And you say coming from UCD to Smurfit, were there any surprises then for you? Was there any differences you picked up on, or what do you think stood out in terms of the offering that you experienced when you were at Smurfit then?
Yeah, though there's definitely was differences. First and foremost, I started my master's in 2020. 2020, bit of an infamous year with our lovely COVID. So that made for quite a shock to the system after doing my 4 years in UCD, all in person. So we had quite a few virtual lectures. I suppose it probably surprised me, and in hindsight, it shouldn't surprise me at all, but was just the level of support we got as students, particularly given the fact that we were doing so many virtual lectures and, trying to engage everything online. It's such a big challenge and such a difficult time for all of us, really difficult circumstances. But the level of support we got from the college was pretty phenomenal. Like I was a class rep for my class, and I remember like plenty of students came to me, with different issues or struggling with different bits of academics. And a lot of the time I said, go talk to the lecturer, maybe they can help you out. And they did so often, because at the end of the day, they wanted to help out. They realized the circumstances, and they didn't want to see people fail. So it made a lot of sense. But that was a surprise to me.
Excellent. So the support you received as a student, even during such I suppose, a traumatic time as COVID, I'm glad to see we were there to be able to help you to get through and to succeed. Of course, that's been the key there.
Absolutely.
To succeed. So what about you, Clara, then, in terms then of your experience and how your undergrad might have translated into your postgrad, and how did you find the supports at Smurfit?
So I guess I did my undergrad in UCC University College Cork in Commerce, and I actually just happened to major in supply chain my final year, and I found it really interesting, and I said I'd like to study it further. And I think at the time, I like Dennis, Smurfit was always kind of like in my mind. It's always a college that I really wanted to go to because how highly accredited it was, and I've had friends in the past who have been there and have raved about their experience. And then obviously when looking into it, their supply chain masters ranked so high in Europe and throughout the world, which was great. And I guess support, I started in 2021, so we were kind of coming out of COVID, but we still had a bit of a lockdown towards Christmas, and then a few of my exams were online. But the lecturers were great in helping us kind of prepare for the online exams, and then the spring trimester, the in-person exams. They were great, and any questions we'd have, we'd just email them straight away and they'd come back. And even in preparation for exam questions, they'd encourage us to send us through questions beforehand, and they might mark them and tell us, okay, maybe a bit more information here, or stick to the key points, which was really handy just because we weren't really sure how to address any of these questions.
So wonderful support there from the lecturing team then in assisting our students. And again, at a very, I suppose, difficult time, but you felt supported. So that's great to hear. Thank you very much. So I suppose then in terms of that was kind of the experience at Smurfit. Was there anything that stood out for you, you know, and we maybe keep COVID out of it for the moment? Was there anything that stood out, an experience that you had to say, wow, that was a wonderful experience? Megan, maybe I'll go to you, because coming from the US, coming to Ireland, yeah, was there anything that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think just the amount of speakers from different industries, I mean, specifically for me, from the energy industry, or, you know, people from KPMG coming and talking about sustainable finance or ESG was awesome. In my undergrad, you know, I went to every career fair and had never had anything like that. And I went to a fairly big public university in the US. So it was just crazy to see such a small, relatively small school provide so much support for students. Yeah, and we got to go on some field trips. We went to like a 90 megawatt solar farm, and we went to a wind farm, and it was just so cool to get that hands-on experience in classes and have lecturers that are so engaged and well established in their career fields, and who are always willing to connect you with people that they know or that might be helpful for you. So that's what stood out to me.
Very applicable, isn't it? A very applied experience, that you not only getting the lecture, the content, the knowledge, but you were able to get some, you know, firsthand experience of how this knowledge is put into practice in the industry. So you, oh, very good. So I'm very, very happy to hear that. Very applied. And how has this translated then for you into your current role then, Megan, with SSE Electricity? How is that? Is there anything that has carried over?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because so many of the lecturers were really well established in their career fields and had, you know, decades of experience, they knew really like what the in-demand skills were going to be. And so, you know, I had lecturers who were working in sort of project financing, renewable energy development. And so they gave us assignments that were really, really applicable to the things that I'm doing now, which has really helped me, and I think set me apart from maybe some of my peers that haven't come from a similar background on the graduate program as well. Just again, like a lot of lecturers who have a really thorough understanding of the Irish energy market, and then, you know, just the global energy market. So it was great to get that knowledge as well, and that's really helped me in the first, you know, 6 or so months of my career. So
very good. It sounds like you really hit the road running there, didn't you, when you got that opportunity with electricity, that the Masters was able to prepare you so well for that, not only from a national perspective, but also from a global knowledge perspective in the field you're in. And so I suppose in terms of impacting your career development, do you see then your next steps to stay within this field that you started out on with the Masters?
yeah, absolutely. I think the world's always going to need energy one way or another, and I think there's always going to be an element of challenge if I move back to the US or stay in Ireland, learning new things all the time. But it's just such an exciting, growing field, and I'm keen to stay in it and kind of grow my career in that sector. So that's what I hope to do anyway.
Very good, very good. So it's setting you up for long-term success. Thank you. Be it back home, or, you know, if you continue your adventure in Ireland. Very good. Thank you. Dennis, then what would you say stood out for you? I mean, obviously you've mentioned the supports that you received, but was there anything else that stood out as part of your experience at Smurfit?
Yeah, there definitely was. Like, there were some great highlights. I mean, from an academic point of view, you know, all the modules I did as part of HR I found very interesting. All were applicable in my time in HR as well, and still are to this day. And you know what I did in consultancy in the last while. I mean, personal highlights then as well. You know, I mean, as I said, it was a class rep for our class, so I got to know a lot of people really well, and really, really developed my network, even in spite of, you know, quite a few virtual lectures. You know, we made quite a few friends in the course, and even those I didn't make, say, as good of friends with, I'm still connections them on LinkedIn, and I continuously see them, you know, getting promoted into different jobs and moving into really good companies. And, you know, I know for a fact that if ever made move from Dubai back to Dublin, I've no doubt that I could leverage and talk to some connections, and it would give me a really, really good opportunity to land roles in Dublin down the line. So I think that was probably a real big highlight for me.
Very good. So it's wonderful to hear that you feel that you have the confidence in the network, be it your class network, the people you studied with, or perhaps others who've gone before you on the HR Masters, the HRM Masters, to be able to rely on them perhaps at some point in the future for your own career development.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, absolutely.
if you ever decide to leave the sun and come back to Ireland, that's something you could look forward to. Excellent. I suppose many people probably, Dennis, just before you leave, you know, in terms of your own career development at this point, so you've worked for the big global brand Accenture. Now you're kind of, you're in the entrepreneurial space now, would you say?
Definitely exploring it, I suppose. I wouldn't say I'm entirely in it. Like, I'm definitely looking for roles out here now, and I've gone through the interview processes of a few different companies, but I'm exploring it and seeing how far it can take me. So we'll see how I get on, but it's much more of an exploration at this stage than saying in this space.
And is there anything, let's say, that you took from Smurfit, your experience here, either be it in the, the careers development space, or anything else that might be assisting you at the moment in that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it probably, like, the CV and interview preparation, Smurfit is excellent. Like, I'm probably fighting against my own business here, especially if everybody in the call ends up joining Smurfit. But I started career ready consulting. I obviously fancy myself a bit at the CV and interview preparation stuff. And I have a bit of background before that. I'd done different work for different members of family. I have family members involved in the space, and I'd done a HR internship for the Masters. But nonetheless, when I got into Smurfit, I definitely engaged with those resources and found them excellent. And I'm still using bits and pieces and knowledge I gained through the one-on-one stuff that we did at Smurfit to this day. So, I mean, like, straight up from actually what my business is about, a lot of the knowledge was gained going through the Smurfit processes and the extras you can get there.
Thank you, Dennis. Really, I'm very happy to hear that, and I will pass on that to my colleagues, and I'll point to their assistance in your success as your career develops. So thank you very much for that, Dennis. So Claire, what would you say then in terms of supply chain management? Is there something that you're using today with your role at Diageo that you perhaps took from the course?
I guess I'm using quite a lot. Mainly, we did a lot of different modules, and that really helped me figure out what avenue of supply chain I want to go down. Like, operations was probably my favorite module and performed the highest, and I'm actually in a very operational based role at the moment. And I guess the material that I learned in the Masters, I'm still using the lingo every day. And from studying that, I'm kind of further developing my career and kind of learning by doing different courses, like my Lean Six Sigma, which I kind of learned about from our lectures and reading different papers and everything.
All right.
Yeah.
So it continues then to be a part, really, your Smurfit knowledge continues to be a part of your day-to-day.
100%. And especially in our final trimester, we had the opportunity to do our consulting project, where we went into a business and we worked with the supply chain manager, helping them solve the real life problems that they're going through. And that really, I guess, gave us a first insight into the working team, what it's really like, and getting feedback and stuff, and working on a real problem that I wouldn't have had any experience before. And I still refer back to that project, and now working for about a year and a half, being like, okay, what could I have done differently now compared to then, with a bit more experience behind me.
Excellent. And so where might you see then your career develop in terms of roles within supply chain over time?
I'm not too sure. I think I'm liking the operational, kind of the planning area that I'm in at the moment. I might look at changing industry. The drinks industry is really exciting, but there's so many other industries I can go into, like pharma. So yeah, I'm open to anything at the moment. So I'm always kind of keeping a lookout. But yeah.
Very good. And so finally then, conscious of the time here this afternoon, I'd love to keep talking to you guys, but I just have to keep within the time we're given. So Claire, before we let you go, in terms of what career advice would you give to somebody who's coming on to the Masters in a sustainable supply chain at the moment, coming in this year?
I guess just get involved in everything. Like there's just so much that Smurfit has to offer. Like all the sports, the CV prep and the interview prep, which was very handy when I was applying for places. Also what I found before going into my Masters, I actually connected with alumni on LinkedIn just to see their opinion on how like this year's class, for example, and that really helped me kind of solidify my decision and gave me a bit more confidence going in, and always just kind of having someone to connect to if I was unsure about an approach to take on an assignment. So the network is really good that way.
So even before you come on board,
Yeah.
you were able to reach out and get some contact with Smurfit alumni. Are you saying Smurfit alumni? So that's really, I'm really happy to hear that the network is so strong that they were able to help you in making that decision. So we often here in the careers team would recommend our students to reach out to the alumni network in terms of assisting them in the job search process. But I'm glad to hear you even preempted that step by engaging with our alumni before even coming on to the program in the first place and getting their advice on whether or not it might suit what you believe are your strengths, your interests, and I suppose your whole academic preparation for life ahead. So thank you, Clara. That's quite insightful, I must say. So thank you so much for that. Dennis, what would you say now in terms of, I'm not asking you to recommend how people get to Dubai now, but in terms of just general career advice, having done the Masters, having done a stint with Accenture, what would your career advice be to potentially people starting the Masters here in general, but HR, let's say HRM? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, do the Masters. If you're business, non-business, a few years experience, you don't do the Masters. And when you start to do it, like as Clara said there, get involved. Like there's so much to offer even outside of the modules you're doing. You can do this DB and interview preparation. I know I did the global leadership program. I did an intercultural development program. Those things still feature on my CV. They're really strong things, and there's so much you can do when you're in Smurfit that would really benefit your CV going forward and your experience in general. And then after it, like I think explore. I know as I went through the HR Masters, I was pretty confident that I wanted to, go towards consultancy. And I did that. But I did my stint in HR before I eventually joined Accenture as well. And I went to Vancouver in Canada to do that, and I did it for 6 months. The Masters carried, and that's how I got that job. And I got that experience, and then came back to Ireland to my offer and started working consultancy. Masters carried again, and that's how I got that job, and it was really beneficial from my experience there. And now still, even as I'm going through, like doing interviews in Dubai here, the Masters still carries. I still have a Masters in HR management. It absolutely carries. And in founding my own business, it's the thing. I'm still carrying through skills I learned in the Masters. So, and it's not even things I learned necessarily in the modules, although that is a huge part of it, but it's things I learned outside as well. So yeah, a few bits there for you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you. We'll leave the last word then to Megan here this afternoon. So Megan, what would you say to somebody coming in to do a Master's in Sustainable Finance? What would you say to them here today?
Yeah, I would say there's just so many opportunities out there. It sounds like a really niche sort of skill to have, but it's such an emerging field, and there's so many people who need that in their companies, or need an ESG specialist or anyone who knows about sort of sustainable finance reporting. So I would say, when there's speakers that come into your courses, leverage those connections, reach out to them afterwards. See if they have any internships open, be a bit cheeky and just ask them if they could connect you with any of their friends. It never hurts to ask, and take advantage of the many experienced, incredible people they have on hand. I'll say I did the GLP as well, and I had a mentor who I think founded Mainstream Renewable Power. So that's just speaks to the level of people who come in and help Smurfit students. So absolutely leverage those connections and get started early so that you know what's out there and you don't miss out on any opportunities.
Excellent. So it's great to hear you reference, the mentoring program that happens while you're here as a student. So yes, you can opt to get on the Global Leadership Program, the application starts quite early, and I'm sure you'll hear about that from my colleagues here this afternoon. But just to say, yeah, in terms of helping our students make some career decisions using the mentoring program, using I suppose the advice that comes from people with such experience who are alumni of the courses and of the programs here at Smurfit. It's such a wonderful opportunity to learn from the best. Yes, so that's great to hear. So you mentioned an acronym there, ESG. I know, sustainable finance is such a, what would you say ESG is? What to the students, what does that mean?
Sorry about that. It's environmental social governance. There's sort of reporting frameworks around that. It's a big thing for companies at the moment to sort of prove that they're green and they're treating their employees fairly and that kind of thing.
So that sounds like it's a big business.
It absolutely is. I think from the consulting side, there's a lot of people interested in that at the Big Four. Obviously, I'm not at the Big Four, but even at an energy company, there's a huge sustainability division that looks at those things and reporting frameworks for those. So if you're interested, I'd say that's probably a good thing to look into.
That's fantastic. So I guess for anybody who's potentially looking at a finance master's, so we've got quite a few of them here at Smurfit. So if you're interested in the sustainable finance, the ESG area is something that's a growth space. So if you're potentially looking at a job, that it could be a good route to follow. So thank you very much to all the panel here this afternoon. I'm going to ask my colleague Kathy to maybe come if we have some questions from the attendees here this afternoon. Kathy?
Thanks, Michael. And thanks also for your contributions, Megan, Clara and Dennis. Just a couple of questions, Michael, about the graduate programme application process. When does that open? And also, can you explain a little bit about direct entry?
Sure. So I guess what is pertinent to the answer to this question is the recruitment cycles that happen while you are a Smurfit student. And the first one is this graduate program, sometimes called the Milk Round. It's in the early phase of your year with us. So it's probably between September and the end of October. And the great majority of graduate programs are open for application during this time. And a graduate program for all of you is just a way for employers to try and onboard new early talent as quickly as possible and put them into their key areas. And so the recruitment starts very early, all right? And it catches a lot of people by surprise. But yes, from about early September onwards, you can apply for these graduate programs, and you might even have started in a class and you're already asked to apply for a job. So yeah, it is something to be aware of. And if you do the Jumpstart course I referenced earlier on, it'll explain all about that, the graduate recruitment cycle. But just to say, yes, you need to kind of hit the ground running on that one. But again, only 20% of our students get a job offer from a graduate program. There are lots of interesting opportunities from the March period onwards, and 80% of our students get what we call these direct entry jobs. So a direct entry job, in contrast to a graduate program, it is recruiting for a specific function. All right, you're being recruited into a finance role that exists, and there's a gap in the organization there, and you've been asked to come in and fill that gap. And sometimes a company may not know about this gap because maybe somebody leaves, or they're building new teams. So that happens pretty close to the September period, and you might find these roles being posted online from about probably April time onwards, right throughout the year. And so that's when the great majority of our students apply for jobs, is in this direct entry period.
Great, Michael. A couple of questions as well about the fairs. And I know I've actually shared a link where normally the UCD recruitment fairs are listed. And I hope I'm correct in saying that the autumn fairs dates have not yet been published, but they will be obviously appear there. So, and our students do have free access to those fairs.
They do. Yeah. So we collaborate with our undergraduate team in Belfield, And we are delighted to kind of bring this large event to our Smurfit students. And yeah, so typically that will happen either the last week in September or the first week in October, just depends on the year. So yeah, you could have upwards of about 80 employers on the main campus, and they've got hundreds of people coming in to meet you. So yeah, it's a wonderfully busy period, and it just helps people make up their minds about, well, which employer they might go for.
Great.
Now, just to finish that point by saying that in spring, we find there is an internship fair that we recommend to our students. There's also the Smurfit Fair, which is slightly smaller, about maybe 30 companies come on looking for specifically for master students in March. But nowadays, just to say that graduate programs are very popular, and a lot of them are now open all year round. So you will have some that close in that September to October period, but there are lots of programs that still are available from January onwards as well.
Okay, Michael. Another question, I'm not sure if we do have statistics on this, but it's what percentage of our graduates are employed after 6 months working in a field related to their course?
So you get those stats when you come in during the professional development workshop.
Okay.
So if you, as I said, as part of orientation, the professional development workshop takes place in that first pre-week before your courses start. And it's a 2-hour session. As I said, we bring in alumni to give you their step-by-step approach to job search, but also we give you the statistics and the, I suppose, the list of employers that our previous students have gone on to as well. So yeah, we distribute those at the start of the academic year.
Okay, great. And then I see there's a question there very specifically for you, Megan. I suppose just asking about job opportunities in the space of sustainable finance in Ireland more generally. Obviously it is sustainable is very much a buzzword at the moment. So maybe you'd like to address that one.
Yeah, I would say there's so many, even in fields that you wouldn't think of traditionally as being sustainable. Like I know the Big Four have really growing like sustainability teams. KPMG has like a set sustainable futures team. I think EY just opened one recently as well. So those are huge companies and great employers to look into for those fields. And I would say Ireland is like such an incredible country for renewable energy. There's so many exciting smaller companies that are developers that I would definitely look into. Mainstream is one of them. There's plenty others that if you do the course, like you'll be exposed to, and there'll be people that'll come in and talk to you from those companies as well. But I would say, you know, AirGrid, ESB, the big energy companies, SSE included, all need good people to come in and help them. And there's so many different avenues you can go down in the sustainability field, and I'm sort of doing something I didn't expect to be doing right now. So I would just say explore all the different avenues, and there's so many companies that need sustainability specialists for sure.
Great. I don't think we've any other questions coming in via the Q&A box, but I'm just going to post the email address for Smurfit Careers if there are any other questions from our attendees this evening. And I just want to thank Michael, Megan and Clara and Dennis also for your brilliant insights. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the team. Yeah. Good luck, Megan, Clara and Dennis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thanks very
evening.
much.
Thank you.